So, as some of you may know, yesterday, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off released on Netflix, and it was meant to be some form of an adaptation of the Scott Pilgrim comic and movie series, which I already adore. This is my third take recording this review, actually, because I had to put so much thought into it because my opinions, especially at the beginning of it, were so unbelievably mixed. But I think that's just because going into it, I originally thought that it was going to be a direct adaptation of the Scott Pilgrim comic and movie, which is what I would have wanted more, but going into it, I actually am really glad that they went with making this more of like a sequel, exploring more into the other characters of the Scott Pilgrim world. How the first episode starts is, it does follow the first couple of chapters of the comic, but then it changes once it gets to the fight between him and Matthew Patel, where Matthew Patel wins the fight, and it seems like Scott Pilgrim is dead. But Ramona Flowers uncovers a conspiracy, and she believes that Scott Pilgrim isn't really dead. Ramona goes to all of her evil exes in the series, and confronts them similar to, not really in the same sense as Scott Pilgrim did, but it's just more of a face-to-face confrontation in a way to find out exactly what happened to Scott. And with this, we learn so much more about the characters behind the Scott Pilgrim world. And we learn more about the details of when Ramona was with each one of these evil exes. And we do see the good side of each one of the evil exes. And later on, we find out that Scott was the one that took Scott, a future version of Scott, because future Scott and future Ramona got into like a little argument and they were separated for a while. And Scott just thought it would be better if he never dated Ramona in the first place. So he went back in time to pull Scott during the Matthew Patel fight to make it seem like he died in that universe, so Ramona would get over him and they would have never dated. But this plan ultimately fails, and an even deeper future version of Scott, who is just obsessing over all of this, tries to take this into more drastic measures by just trying to take out and fight all of the other Scott Pilgrim characters. I think how they played this out was extremely well, though I would have definitely preferred more of a direct adaptation of it, but I am still really glad of what we got with this. Now for more of like what I like and don't like about the more general aspect of like animation, soundtrack. The animation, there were some bits in it where I felt like it was a little bit finicky, but nothing really that was a big issue. Basically, where the animation needed to be good, it was top-notch, well above what I expected for it. The animation was just so crisp and exactly what I would have thought of for Scott Pilgrim in an animated form. And the soundtrack, although I do think the movie soundtrack is significantly more memorable, I can list off so many songs from that original soundtrack, and I can honestly I have all the lyrics memorized, like, I know those songs, like, they are so memorable to me. Whereas the songs in Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, they weren't coherently bad, but that's not really as memorable to me. I still really did enjoy the soundtrack, though. It's just, me personally, not really memorable. There were some bits in this where I felt like the line delivery could have been a bit better, but not a big issue at all, really. But when going into this, especially during the first, 3 episodes, and some of my friends can definitely confirm this, I was extremely negative about it because I was going into it expecting a direct adaptation, because that's what they showed in trailers and stuff. That's what I was expecting. And I did have a really negative thought on the show, starting it, but after finishing it, I am honestly really glad that they didn't adapt it. I still would have loved to see the Scott Pilgrim comic and movie. My fucking ring light, god damn it. Back to what I was saying. I still really would have loved to see the Scott Pilgrim comic adapted into animation, because when I was reading through the comics after I watched through the movie, that's exactly how I imagined the comics in my head. Like, basically exactly what the animation style was for the anime, and that's really what I was hoping for, but I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get that. But I am still really glad this is what we got, because it gives so much more insight that was never given before to all of the other characters. Now for my final rating, if you asked me this when I first started, before I even finished the show, I probably would have said it was about like a 5 or 6 out of 10, because I did like all the general aspects of it coming to animation, soundtrack, and all that other pizzazz, but I just didn't like the direction of the story. But after finishing it, I really, like I said, I really do enjoy it. So my final rating for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, I think I'm going to give it a good 8 out of 10. I think it was genuinely incredible, and I am glad of what we got, though I would have enjoyed a direct adaptation. That's about it, all I have to say. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Again, this is my third take recording this, because I had to really think about it, because my feelings were so mixed about it. But overall, though, I am really glad of what we got, and I'm not upset about it at all. That's about it. See ya.